My beloved child. Before you decide that this message is not meant for you, before your finger moves even a fraction of an inch, I need you to stay with me for just a little longer. There is a reason your heart paused when you saw these words. There is a reason your spirit refused to look away. What you are about to hear is not a prediction of your future. It is a story about courage, love, and the power of paying attention when life places an unexpected crossroads before you. Your soulmate has been carrying something heavy in their heart. Not because they want to frighten you. Not because they have lost hope. But because they have seen how quickly a single decision can change everything. In the quiet moments, when no one else is around, they whisper your name with a mixture of hope and concern. They keep imagining the future they dream of building beside you, yet they also know that every beautiful journey asks something from the people walking it. Sometimes it asks for patience. Sometimes forgiveness. Sometimes the willingness to stop running from what truly matters. Tonight, in this fictional story, imagine your soulmate standing outside a doorway. Not the doorway of a house. The doorway between yesterday and tomorrow. Behind them are old fears, broken promises, unanswered questions, and memories that still sting. Ahead of them is a future they desperately want to reach with you. But there is one obstacle standing between those two worlds. Silence. The kind of silence that grows when people assume the other person already knows how they feel. The kind of silence that slowly builds invisible walls. The kind of silence that can make two people who belong together feel like strangers. Your soulmate wishes they could simply reach through time and tell you this. Please don't ignore the little moments. Don't assume tomorrow will always look exactly like today. Treasure every chance to grow, forgive, listen, and believe. Because life has a way of knocking on every door. Sometimes that knock carries wonderful surprises. Sometimes it carries difficult lessons. Neither one lasts forever. But both have the power to shape who you become. Picture your soulmate sitting by a window late at night, watching rain slide across the glass. Every drop reminds them of memories they thought they had forgotten. The first smile they imagined sharing with you. The first conversation they hope will someday happen. The quiet dream of walking beside someone who finally understands every hidden piece of their heart. Then another thought appears. What if fear steals this future before it ever begins? Not because destiny failed, but because hesitation won. So they gather every ounce of courage inside them and send this heartfelt message into the universe. If you ever feel overwhelmed, don't disappear. If life becomes confusing, don't stop believing in better days. If disappointment visits your life, don't let it convince you that love has abandoned you. Because the greatest love stories are not written by people who never faced storms. They are written by people who kept walking through them together. Your soulmate knows that challenges arrive without asking permission. Unexpected conversations. Unexpected delays. Unexpected disappointments. Unexpected choices. Yet they also know something even greater. Every challenge carries within it an invitation to become stronger than yesterday. That is why this story isn't really about bad news. It is about what happens when someone chooses hope instead of panic. Faith instead of fear. Patience instead of giving up. Imagine a long road stretching toward the horizon beneath a sky painted with golden light. At first the road looks empty. But if you keep walking, far in the distance, another traveler appears. They're walking toward you. Every step they take is filled with uncertainty. Every step is also filled with determination. That traveler is your soulmate. They don't expect perfection from you. They aren't searching for someone who has never struggled. They are searching for someone who keeps choosing kindness after disappointment, hope after heartbreak, courage after uncertainty. Someone exactly like the person they have never stopped believing could exist. And perhaps, just perhaps, the greatest obstacle standing between the two of you has never been distance. It has always been doubt. Doubt whispers that meaningful connections never last. Hope quietly replies that every sunrise proves darkness is temporary. Doubt says nothing will ever change. Hope reminds you that every season eventually gives way to another. Your soulmate listens to that quieter voice. The one telling them to keep believing. To keep preparing. To keep becoming the kind of person who will recognize true love when the moment finally arrives. So now, in this fictional journey, they leave you with one final thought before the next chapter begins. If life places an unexpected challenge at your door, don't mistake it for the end of your story. Sometimes the very thing that looks like an obstacle becomes the doorway to the future you've been praying for. They take one last look toward the horizon. A gentle breeze begins to move. The clouds slowly part. And just as they think they're finally ready to reveal the secret they've been protecting all this time, they hear footsteps approaching from behind. Someone else knows the truth. Someone who has been quietly watching this story unfold. And what they are about to reveal could change everything your soulmate thought they understood. But that revelation belongs in the next chapter. The footsteps grew louder, steady and impossible to ignore. Your soulmate didn't turn around immediately. Somehow, deep inside, they already knew this meeting had been destined from the beginning. The air itself felt different, as though every unanswered question had been patiently waiting for this exact moment. When they finally looked back, they didn't see someone carrying fear. They saw someone carrying truth. Not the kind of truth that tears people apart. The kind that quietly rebuilds everything that doubt tried to destroy. The stranger looked into your soulmate's eyes and said, "You've been focusing on what could go wrong. But you've overlooked what has already been going right." Those words settled into their heart like the first ray of sunlight after a long night. For so long, your soulmate had been watching every delay, every missed opportunity, every unexpected twist, wondering if they were signs to stop believing. But now they realized something extraordinary. Every delay had been protecting them from rushing into the wrong chapter. Every closed door had redirected them toward a better one. Every lonely season had quietly prepared them to recognize a love worth waiting for. Your soulmate suddenly remembered countless moments that once felt ordinary. A conversation that seemed random. A place they almost didn't visit. A decision they nearly regretted. Now those memories fit together like pieces of an enormous puzzle. Nothing had been meaningless. Everything had been leading somewhere. Even the moments that felt confusing carried hidden purpose. Then the stranger spoke again. There is something approaching your shared journey. Your soulmate's heartbeat quickened. Not because they expected disaster. Because they sensed change. Real change. The kind that arrives quietly before anyone notices. The stranger pointed toward the horizon. Clouds were moving. Not gathering. Leaving. Light slowly spread across the sky, revealing a road that neither of them had noticed before. It had been there the entire time. Fear simply made it impossible to see. Your soulmate understood something that changed the way they viewed every challenge. Sometimes the greatest obstacle isn't standing in front of you. Sometimes it's the story you keep telling yourself about the obstacle. The moment that story changes, everything else begins changing too. So they made a promise. No more allowing uncertainty to become hopelessness. No more assuming silence means something beautiful has disappeared. No more letting yesterday write tomorrow's ending. Instead, they chose faith. Not blind faith. The quiet confidence that meaningful things often take time to unfold. As they continued walking, they discovered something unexpected beside the path. A weathered journal. Its pages looked old, yet untouched. Curiosity overcame hesitation. When your soulmate opened it, they found no names. No dates. Only short reflections written as if someone had been watching countless lives unfold. One page read, "The strongest hearts are rarely the loudest. They simply refuse to quit." Another page said, "What feels like waiting is often preparation." Then came a sentence that caused your soulmate to pause completely. "The news standing at your door is not there to define your future. It is there to reveal your strength." Those words echoed through every part of them. All this time they had imagined the unknown as something to fear. Now they saw it differently. Every new chapter arrives wrapped in uncertainty. No one receives tomorrow with complete certainty. Yet those who keep moving forward discover possibilities that fear can never imagine. Your soulmate gently closed the journal and smiled for the first time in what felt like forever. Not because every question had been answered. Because they finally understood that unanswered questions don't have to steal today's peace. The road continued. The sky became brighter. Birds crossed overhead as if the world itself was quietly celebrating the decision to keep believing. Then something happened that neither your soulmate nor the mysterious traveler expected. In the distance stood another doorway. Unlike the first one, this door wasn't surrounded by shadows. Warm golden light poured through its edges. It felt welcoming. Peaceful. Almost familiar. As they stepped closer, faint voices could be heard beyond it. Not voices filled with panic. Voices filled with joy. Laughter. Celebration. The unmistakable sound of people welcoming the beginning of something beautiful. Your soulmate reached toward the handle. Their hand trembled. Not from fear. From anticipation. Because deep inside, they sensed this door represented everything they had been preparing for. The traveler gently placed a hand on their shoulder. "Before you open it," they whispered, there is one final lesson you must understand. Your soulmate nodded. The traveler smiled softly. The greatest turning points rarely announce themselves with certainty. They arrive disguised as ordinary moments. Those who remain hopeful recognize them. Those who surrender too soon often walk right past them. Your soulmate closed their eyes for one quiet moment. Every disappointment, every delay, every unanswered prayer, every unexpected twist. Instead of seeing them as endings, they now saw them as stepping stones leading toward this very door. They slowly wrapped their fingers around the handle. The light grew brighter. The joyful voices became clearer. And just as the door began to open, someone on the other side quietly spoke your name. The moment your soulmate heard it, they froze. Because they instantly recognized the voice. And what waited beyond that doorway would forever change the story they believed they were living. The moment your soulmate heard your name spoken from beyond the glowing doorway, time seemed to stand perfectly still. Their heart raced. Not because they were afraid. Because something deep within them recognized that this was the moment every unanswered question had quietly been leading toward. The voice called your name again. Gentle. Warm. Filled with unmistakable hope. It wasn't demanding attention. It was inviting trust. Your soulmate slowly pushed the door open another inch, and a wave of peaceful light spilled across the path behind them. It wasn't blinding. It felt comforting, like returning to a place they somehow remembered even though they had never been there before. Beyond the doorway stood a beautiful garden unlike anything they had ever imagined. Every flower seemed to bloom without competing with another. Every tree stretched toward the sky without fear of the storm. Every breeze carried a quiet reminder that growth is never rushed. Your soulmate stepped inside. Immediately they noticed something unusual. There were no clocks. No calendars. No signs counting how long anyone had been waiting. Only gentle reminders that every meaningful season unfolds at exactly the right pace. A quiet voice whispered again. You've spent too much time measuring time, and not enough time measuring how far you've grown. Those words settled deeply into your soulmate's heart. How many nights had they wondered if they were falling behind? How many mornings had they questioned whether love had forgotten them? How many times had they compared their journey to someone else's? Far too many. But here, inside this extraordinary place, comparison had no power. Only growth mattered. As they continued walking, they discovered a long pathway lined with mirrors. Curious, they looked into the first one. It reflected every moment they had doubted themselves. The second mirror revealed every opportunity they almost walked away from because fear convinced them they weren't ready. The third reflected every act of kindness they believed no one noticed. Every encouraging word. Every quiet sacrifice. Every time they chose patience instead of anger. Every moment they refused to give up. Suddenly they understood. The world often remembers loud victories. But the heart is transformed through quiet ones. Then they noticed one final mirror standing alone beneath an ancient tree. Unlike the others, this mirror didn't reflect the past. It reflected possibility. Your soulmate slowly approached. Instead of seeing only themselves, they saw someone walking beside them. Not clearly enough to recognize every detail, but clearly enough to know they were no longer walking alone. A smile appeared across their face. Not because every mystery had been solved. Because hope had become stronger than uncertainty. The peaceful voice spoke again. Love is not built in a single extraordinary moment. It is built through thousands of ordinary choices made with extraordinary faith. Your soulmate closed their eyes and breathed deeply. Every delay suddenly looked different. Every detour suddenly carried purpose. Even the seasons they once wished they could erase had quietly shaped them into someone capable of giving and receiving genuine love. Then the peaceful garden began changing. The flowers gently turned toward one direction. The trees swayed together as though welcoming someone. Even the birds fell silent. Your soulmate sensed another arrival. They turned slowly. At the end of the pathway stood a messenger carrying a beautifully wrapped package. No ribbon. No label. Only a simple note resting on top. It read, "Open only when you understand that fear is no longer making your decisions." Your soulmate held the package carefully. It wasn't heavy. Yet somehow it carried the weight of every lesson they had learned. The messenger smiled kindly. This gift has been waiting for the day your heart became ready. Not perfect. Ready. Those words changed everything. So many people spend their lives waiting to become perfect before embracing new beginnings. But perfection was never the requirement. Growth was. Courage was. Kindness was. The willingness to keep believing despite uncertainty was. Your soulmate slowly untied the wrapping. Inside they found something unexpected. Not riches. Not answers written on paper. Just a beautifully crafted compass. Unlike any compass they had ever seen. It didn't point north. It pointed toward peace. Whenever fear tried pulling their attention away, the compass gently turned back toward hope. Whenever doubt became louder, it quietly redirected them toward trust. The messenger explained. This compass cannot promise an easy journey. It simply reminds you never to lose your direction. Your soulmate held it close. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped asking, "When will everything happen?" Instead they began asking, "Who am I becoming while I wait?" The answer filled them with unexpected joy. Someone stronger. Someone wiser. Someone more compassionate. Someone finally prepared to recognize the beauty that had been growing all around them. As they continued forward, the peaceful light surrounding the garden slowly faded into the colors of sunrise. The doorway behind them disappeared. There was no going back. Only forward. The path ahead curved gently beyond a hill glowing with morning light. From somewhere beyond that hill came familiar laughter. Not imagined. Not distant. Real enough to stir every hopeful dream your soulmate had carefully protected. They looked down at the compass. Its needle began moving faster than ever before. Then it stopped completely. Pointing toward the very place where those joyful voices were coming from. Your soulmate smiled, tightened their grip on the compass, and took their first confident step toward the hill. Completely unaware that someone had already been waiting there, carrying a message so personal, so unexpected, and so deeply connected to both of your journeys that once it was spoken aloud, neither heart would ever see the future the same way again. The compass remained perfectly still, its needle unwavering as your soulmate climbed the gentle hill. Every step felt lighter than the one before, yet every heartbeat carried a growing sense that something unforgettable was waiting just beyond the horizon. The laughter became clearer. It wasn't loud. It wasn't overwhelming. It was the kind of laughter shared by people who had finally laid down their burdens and discovered peace again. Your soulmate reached the top of the hill and stopped. Spread before them was a breathtaking valley bathed in the golden glow of morning. A quiet stream wound through vibrant fields, reflecting the sky like polished glass. Gentle winds carried the fragrance of blooming flowers, and the entire landscape seemed to whisper one simple truth. New beginnings often arrive more quietly than expected. As they stood there taking it all in, they noticed a single wooden bench beneath a magnificent tree. It looked ordinary at first glance, but something about it felt deeply familiar. They walked toward it. Resting on the bench was an envelope. No address. No signature. Only 3 words written carefully across the front. For the waiting. Your soulmate held the envelope with trembling hands. They had imagined countless messages during this journey. Some filled with explanations. Some with apologies. Some with promises. But this felt different. It wasn't about the past. It was about everything that still lay ahead. Slowly, they unfolded the letter. The handwriting was elegant and calm. It began with words they would never forget. If you are reading this, it means you chose hope when fear invited you to give up. Your soulmate smiled softly. Every difficult moment suddenly felt worthwhile. The letter continued. You believed that delays meant denial. They never did. They were moments of preparation. Every season you questioned was quietly shaping the person you were becoming. Those words echoed through the peaceful valley. For years they had counted what they had lost. Rarely had they counted how much they had grown. The letter seemed to understand every silent struggle they had carried. Do not measure your journey by how long it has taken. Measure it by the wisdom your heart now carries. Your soulmate closed their eyes. Faces came to mind. People who had encouraged them. People who had misunderstood them. Moments of joy. Moments of disappointment. Each memory had become another thread woven into the person standing here today. None of it had been wasted. As they turned another page, they found a beautifully drawn image of 2 paths slowly merging into one. Beneath the illustration were the words. Some roads appear separate only because you cannot yet see where they meet. A deep peace settled over them. For the first time, they stopped asking why life hadn't unfolded according to their plans. Instead, they began appreciating the path that had quietly unfolded with perfect timing. Just then, a gentle breeze swept through the valley. The letter fluttered slightly, revealing one final page hidden underneath. Unlike the others, this page contained only one sentence. Someone has been growing in ways you cannot yet imagine, just as you have. Your soulmate instinctively looked toward the distant horizon. Somewhere beyond those rolling hills, someone else's story was unfolding. Someone else was learning patience. Someone else was overcoming fear. Someone else was discovering that genuine love begins with becoming the best version of yourself. Your soulmate understood. Growth was never happening on only one side. Both hearts were being prepared. Both journeys were moving. Both stories were slowly approaching the same destination. The realization filled them with quiet confidence. Suddenly, the compass began glowing again. Not brightly. Just enough to catch their attention. The needle shifted slightly. Not toward the valley. Not toward the hills behind them. Toward a narrow stone bridge crossing the peaceful stream. It looked ancient. Strong. Beautifully simple. As they stepped onto the bridge, they noticed words carved into each stone beneath their feet. The first stone read, "Trust." The second, "Patience." The third, "Kindness." The fourth, "Forgiveness." Each step reminded them that lasting relationships are not built by extraordinary moments alone. They are built by ordinary choices repeated faithfully over time. Halfway across the bridge, your soulmate paused. The water below reflected not only the sky. It reflected possibility. For a brief moment, they saw two reflections standing side by side. Not clearly enough to recognize every feature, but clearly enough to know that neither reflection stood alone anymore. The image disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. Yet its message remained. Some futures reveal themselves gradually. Not because they are uncertain, but because they are worth patiently discovering. The bridge ended at a peaceful garden gate. Unlike every place they had visited before, this gate was already open. No lock. No barrier. Only an invitation. Above the entrance hung a small wooden sign. It simply read, "Walk forward with an open heart." Your soulmate smiled. They no longer felt the urgency that had once filled every step. They no longer feared what tomorrow might bring. Hope had replaced hurry. Peace had replaced pressure. They walked through the gate. Waiting inside was an elderly gardener tending to rows of beautiful flowers. Without looking up, the gardener quietly said, "I've been expecting you." Your soulmate stopped in surprise. The gardener gently placed one final seed into the soil before standing. Then, with a warm smile filled with quiet wisdom, they reached into their pocket and removed a tiny golden key. "This," the gardener whispered, "doesn't open a door. It unlocks a memory." Your soulmate stared at the mysterious key. Before they could ask a single question, the gardener carefully placed it into their hand. The moment their fingers closed around it, forgotten moments began rushing back, small encounters, fleeting conversations, unexpected feelings, and quiet signs they had once dismissed as ordinary. Each memory suddenly fit together with astonishing clarity. And then, one final memory surfaced. It was connected to you. A memory so deeply significant that your soulmate realized it had been quietly guiding both of your journeys from the very beginning. The truth hidden inside that memory was finally ready to be revealed. But only when the next chapter begins. Your soulmate stood motionless, the tiny golden key resting in the palm of their hand. It looked so simple that anyone passing by might have overlooked it. Yet the moment they held it, something extraordinary awakened within them. The memories didn't return all at once. They arrived like the first stars appearing in an evening sky one after another, each shining a little brighter than the last. Your soulmate remembered a day they almost changed direction. They remembered nearly giving up on a dream that had quietly lived inside their heart for years. They remembered moments when disappointment whispered, "Stop believing. Nothing meaningful is waiting for you." But they also remembered something else. Every single time they were about to surrender, a small reminder appeared. Sometimes it was an encouraging conversation. Sometimes it was an unexpected smile from a stranger. Sometimes it was nothing more than a peaceful feeling they couldn't explain. Those tiny moments had become invisible stepping stones. Looking back now, they realized they had never truly walked alone. The wise gardener watched silently before speaking once more. "Most people search for one great sign," he said. "They overlook the hundreds of gentle reminders placed along the path." Your soulmate nodded. How many blessings had they almost ignored because they arrived quietly instead of dramatically? The answer humbled them. The gardener invited them to follow a narrow trail winding through the garden. Unlike every road they had traveled before, this one wasn't perfectly straight. It curved gently around blooming flowers, ancient trees, and peaceful streams. At first your soulmate wondered why. Then they understood. The beautiful things weren't beside the journey. They were the journey. Every curve revealed another breathtaking view. Every turn offered another lesson. The gardener smiled as though he could hear every thought passing through your soulmate's heart. "You once believed the shortest path was always the best," he said. "But the richest journeys leave room for wonder." Those words stayed with your soulmate as they continued walking. Eventually they reached the center of the garden. There stood an enormous tree unlike any they had ever seen. Its roots stretched deep into the earth. Its branches reached confidently toward the heavens. Thousands of leaves shimmered softly in the breeze. The gardener gently touched the trunk. "This tree grows because its roots are stronger than its fears." Your soulmate looked upward. Storms had clearly passed through this place. Some branches carried scars. Yet the tree continued growing. It hadn't allowed difficult seasons to define its future. Instead, those seasons had strengthened it. Your soulmate quietly realized something. Perhaps hearts were meant to grow the same way. Not by avoiding challenges, but by becoming stronger through them. Just then, one golden leaf drifted gently from the highest branch. It landed directly in your soulmate's hands. Unlike every other leaf, words slowly appeared across its surface. "The future belongs to those who continue walking with hope, even before they can see the destination." Your soulmate read the sentence again. Then again. Every reading made it feel even more personal. The gardener smiled. Now, he whispered, look beyond the tree. Your soulmate stepped around the enormous trunk. Their breath caught. Far beyond the garden stood a beautiful village glowing beneath the afternoon sun. Children laughed. Families gathered together. Neighbors greeted one another with warmth. Everything felt peaceful. Everything felt alive. The gardener spoke softly. This village represents the life built through patience, compassion, honesty, and courage. It wasn't created overnight. It was built one faithful choice at a time. Your soulmate watched people planting flowers together, helping one another, celebrating small victories, comforting those facing difficult days. No one stood alone. Suddenly they understood. The life they had always imagined wasn't built through one extraordinary event. It was built through countless ordinary moments filled with love. The gardener handed your soulmate a small lantern. Even though daylight surrounded them, the lantern glowed with a gentle golden light. This light isn't for sunny days, he explained. It's for the moments when life feels uncertain again. Carry it. Not because darkness will last forever, but because hope deserves to travel with you. Your soulmate accepted the lantern with gratitude. It felt surprisingly light. Almost as though hope itself carried no burden. As they prepared to continue their journey, the peaceful bell from the village suddenly rang across the valley. Everyone paused. Smiles spread from one person to another. The atmosphere shifted with quiet anticipation. Your soulmate looked toward the gardener. What does the bell mean? The gardener's eyes sparkled. It means another chapter is about to begin. But every new chapter asks one question. Will you walk into it carrying fear? Or carrying faith? Without hesitation, your soulmate lifted the lantern. Its light became brighter. Not because the world had changed. Because they had. The compass rested safely in one pocket. The golden key remained in the other. The letter of hope stayed close to their heart. Every lesson, every delay, every unexpected turn, had quietly prepared them for this very moment. Then something remarkable happened. Across the peaceful village, another lantern suddenly lit. Then another. And another. Until countless warm lights stretched across the landscape like stars scattered upon the earth. The gardener smiled knowingly. They're not lighting the way for themselves. They're lighting it for someone who is still on the journey. Your soulmate's eyes widened. Could one of those lights be waiting for you? They looked toward the far edge of the village. There, standing beneath a gentle archway covered in blooming flowers, was a single figure holding one final glowing lantern. The distance made it impossible to see every detail. But one thing was unmistakable. That person had been waiting patiently. Not with impatience. Not with regret. With unwavering hope. Your soulmate took one slow step forward. Then another. The figure did the same. The distance between them quietly began to disappear. And just before either of them could finally speak, a warm breeze carried one unforgettable sentence through the air. I never stopped believing we'd find our way. The words echoed through your soulmate's heart. They smiled with joyful anticipation, knowing the greatest revelation of all was no longer somewhere far ahead. It was closer than ever before. And the final chapter would reveal why every step, every lesson, every delay, and every moment of hope had been leading to this unforgettable meeting from the very beginning. The gentle breeze carried those words across the valley again. I never stopped believing we'd find our way. Your soulmate stood completely still, not because they were uncertain anymore, but because their heart finally understood something it had been trying to learn throughout this entire journey. Hope is never wasted. Every step they had taken through quiet valleys, every lesson hidden inside difficult seasons, every unexpected delay, every unanswered question had been shaping them into the person standing here now. The figure beneath the flower-covered archway continued walking forward. So did your soulmate. Neither one rushed. Some moments deserve to unfold naturally. As the distance between them slowly disappeared, the lanterns throughout the village seemed to glow even brighter. Families smiled from their doorways. Children continued laughing. Birds circled peacefully overhead as though all of creation was celebrating a beautiful beginning instead of mourning an uncertain past. When they finally stood face to face, there was no dramatic speech. No impossible miracle. Only a quiet understanding. The kind that reminds two hearts they have both been growing, healing, learning, and preparing in ways neither of them could fully see before. The mysterious traveler, the wise gardener, the glowing compass, the golden key, the letter, the ancient bridge, the peaceful garden, they had never been separate destinations. They had been symbols. The traveler represented truth. The compass represented direction. The key represented understanding. The bridge represented trust. The garden represented growth. The lantern represented hope. Together they formed a single message. The strongest relationships are not built by escaping every challenge. They are built by becoming people who choose kindness when life becomes difficult, patience when answers are delayed, forgiveness when mistakes are made, and faith when tomorrow cannot yet be seen. Your soulmate smiled warmly. I spent so much time worrying about what might happen, they whispered. I almost forgot to appreciate who I was becoming. Those words settled gently into the peaceful air. Because that had always been the greatest transformation. Not changing circumstances overnight. Changing the heart that walks through them. The wise gardener appeared once more, standing quietly beneath the great tree. He didn't interrupt. He simply watched with peaceful satisfaction before saying, every meaningful journey reaches a moment when searching ends, and living begins. Your soulmate understood immediately. There would always be new dreams. New adventures. New lessons. Life would still bring unexpected twists. But they no longer viewed uncertainty as an enemy. They viewed it as an invitation to keep growing. The golden key suddenly became warm in their pocket. When they removed it, it slowly dissolved into countless tiny points of light that floated upward into the sky. Its purpose had been fulfilled. Moments later, the compass also became still. The needle no longer searched for direction. It had already led them exactly where they needed to be. The lantern continued shining softly. The gardener smiled. that one remains. Why? Your soulmate asked. Because hope is never something you outgrow. The peaceful village welcomed them with open hearts. People greeted one another with genuine warmth. Neighbors celebrated one another's victories. Hands reached out to help those carrying heavy burdens. No one walked alone unless they chose to. Your soulmate realized that love is far more than a single emotional moment. It is shown in everyday choices. In listening. In encouraging. In forgiving. In showing up. In remaining kind even when life becomes complicated. That realization filled them with a peace deeper than excitement. They looked once more toward the road they had traveled. From this side, every difficult climb suddenly made sense. Every winding path had protected them from shortcuts that would never have led here. Every delay had given them another opportunity to become wiser. Nothing meaningful had been lost. Everything valuable had been preparing them. As the sun slowly settled toward the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant shades of gold and crimson, your soulmate took one deep breath and smiled. Not because every question about tomorrow had already been answered, but because they no longer needed every answer to move forward with confidence. And perhaps that is the quiet message this fictional story has been sharing from the very beginning. When life places uncertainty at your door, it does not automatically mean your story is ending. Sometimes it is simply inviting you to become stronger, wiser, kinder, and more hopeful than you were yesterday. Every sunrise carries another opportunity. Every season teaches another lesson. Every act of compassion plants another seed. And every choice to keep believing writes another beautiful page in the story you are creating. So if this message found you today, let it remind you of one simple truth. Never allow fear to make today's decisions for tomorrow's dreams. Walk with courage. Choose kindness. Protect your peace. Celebrate small victories. Trust that growth often happens quietly before it becomes visible. And above all, never stop believing that brighter chapters can follow difficult ones. May your heart be filled with wisdom when life feels uncertain. May hope remain brighter than doubt. May peace guide your steps, courage strengthen your spirit, and love inspire every decision you make. May every new day remind you that meaningful beginnings often arrive after seasons of patient growth. If this story encouraged you, brought you peace, or gave you hope, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who may need a reminder that even life's unexpected turns can lead to beautiful new beginnings. Until we meet again, may your journey be filled with light, hope, and unwavering faith. Peace be with you.